Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10 and support the channel at the same time. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. Standard continues to be extremely turbulent. You're going to see that in today's video. We're kind of in a weird place because a couple weeks ago, Guilds of Ravnica came out, rotation occurred, we began seeing these cards in competitive play. Last weekend, there were no major Standard tournaments. There were some team-limited GPs. However, there were a lot of small tournaments, and play continued on Magic Online. So the format has been evolving, but it's been kind of evolving behind the scenes. This weekend, there is a Standard Classic that's going to happen, and next weekend is the return of Standard GPs. So there's going to be a lot of big changes, not only this week, but in the weeks to come. Aside from Standard, we're also going to look at Modern, as we always do, a little bit of Vintage Magic in there, some Commander and Pauper today as well. Quickly, before we get started, though, just a fast reminder, if you check out the description below, you'll find a few ways to help support what we do here at the channel, one of which is our Patreon page. Also, you're going to find links to products on Amazon down below. If you make any purchases, once you go through that link, no matter what it is, we'll get a small percentage for the channel. Finally, Flipside Gaming still offering a promo code for our viewers. They actually just listed some classic art playmats, which look really sweet. You might want to check it out. And with that being said, thank you not only to the folks that look at those links, but to all the viewers. Y'all make the channel what it is. I appreciate each and every one of you, but let's get into it. Before we get into our top 5 and top 10, yes, I'm going to do another top 10 this week when it comes to Standard, but I wanted to point out one Guilds of Ravnica card. Now, typically what I do with Guilds of Ravnica, at least until they get assimilated pretty well into the market, I'll do a separate video about those cards, usually a day or two before this one, and I did a video on Thursday, which I'll link at the end in case you missed it. But since Thursday, this card really jumped, and I wanted to point it out. Arclight Phoenix in the last week has gone up $9.74 to $13.99. This is a key part in those Izzet spell decks in Standard, and I do think that deck is poised to maybe have a big weekend, if not this weekend, maybe next weekend. And also in Modern, there's a new aggro deck, and it's called Runaway Red. It's a red aggro deck, but it's running some cards from Guilds of Ravnica. This is one of them. Okay, let's move on to our top 5 Standard legal cards that have lost value this week. Number 5, Crucible of Worlds from 5th Dawn, down 83 cents to $29.99. Of course, this is Standard legal because it was reprinted in Magic 2019, and that reprint is the reason that all the variants of this card have been soft recently. This is still a great card for casual play, Commander decks, but I also see some competitive play in a lot of Modern and some Legacy decks too. For example, in Modern, there's a few big decks running this right now. Whir of Invention, that is a deck, will run usually one of these in the main. And of course, Mono Green Tron, very popular deck, usually runs one of these in the sideboard. So it's still a card with a lot of influence. It's just not doing a lot in Standard right now because there's no support around it. Number 4, Star of Extinction. This goes down to $1.48 this week to $4.97. Last week, this did have a jump, and now we're seeing a little bit of a retraction. There was some thought that maybe you could work this into a Boros aggro deck and combo it with True Fire Captain. Unfortunately, I do think that's pretty fragile, and also this is a very expensive spell for Standard. Not to mention, it feels like Boros aggro is cooling off a little bit in favor of mono red aggro. We'll know more this weekend and the next, of course, but in general, I think this card will continue to go down. Number 3, Tezzeret Artifice Master, down $1.59 to $7.50. This card just doesn't have a home now in Standard due to the fact that Kaladesh has rotated out, and there's just really no place for it. The support's not there for this type of card right now. It will continue to go down. Legacy, it saw a tad bit of play for a while. You're not seeing a whole lot of that anymore either, but for a bit, you did find this in some sideboards of artifact decks here or there. Number 2, Karn, Scion of Urza, goes down $1.63 this week to $28.19. Pretty big slide for Karn, considering it is such a good card, and I do think in some ways is an underrated card right now, especially in Standard, but it has performed very well in Modern and Legacy. Modern, it's in a number of decks, including Affinity and Hardened Scales Affinity, Legacy, Mono Red Prison, Eldrazi Post, again, just to name a few. The card shows up in a lot of different places. Now, Standard, it's been kind of relegated recently to sideboard play. Selesnya tokens, though, sometimes will run it out of the board, so will Mono Red Aggro at times, Abzan mid-range too, so the card is out there, it's seeing plenty of play, but you do have to remember, a lot of people scrambled for a while to get their copies, and they have their copies now, so some of the demand is down a little bit, and also a lot of Dominaria was open. At least for now, I do think this card will settle down maybe closer to the $25 mark before it starts increasing again. Number 1, Nexus of Fate, down $2.46 to $18.90. Another card that's been on a lot of lists recently. It continues to slide. It's going to continue to slide. It just doesn't really have a place right now in the meta. It kind of barely had a place in the last meta. The Turbo Fog deck had its moment, definitely, but it started to fall off as people were more prepared for it. And once rotation happened, this card just kind of disappeared. There was a modern Turbo Fog deck out there as well, but that particular deck only ran 1 copy of this as opposed to 4 that you saw in the standard. Alright, again, like I mentioned, we're going to do top 10 standard legal cards that have gained value this week because there's just so much going on right now in the format. Number 10, Cleansing Nova goes up $1.41 to $4.57. Very efficient sweep spell. You're going to find this in a few places. Celestia Tokens decks usually will run like a copy out of the board, but this is main deckable in Jeskai or Azorius Control builds. Number 9, Carnage Tyrant goes up $1.42 to $22.57. I have mentioned in other videos that this is seeing some modern play, and that's still the case. You'll find a copy out of the board a lot of times in Scapeshift decks or Amulet Titan decks. In Standard, you're not seeing it all over the place necessarily right now, but it is showing up in sideboards here or there. This price jump, though, I do think is foreshadowing that you're going to see more of it going forward, and that's because control decks feel like they're getting positioned better and better as the weeks go on, which is not abnormal when it comes to a Standard meta. Typically, you start off with a lot of aggro decks, and then as time goes on, you see more control decks. People are going to prepare for that by putting this in sideboards. I think Abzan midrange, Golgari midrange, Steel Leaf Stompy are all places you'll start seeing this show up, if not in the main, definitely in the board going forward. And I will say, Izzet control decks feel like they're gaining some momentum. That could be another reason for the increased attention on this card. Number 8, Rekindling Phoenix goes up $1.53 to $27.14, and this card is still good after rotation. Who would have thunk it, right? So, it's in a lot of decks. Mono Red Aggro, Boros Midrange, Boros Aggro, Jeskai Midrange, just to name a few, and it's not going anywhere. Now, I will say this, it will go up in price a little more, but it's not going to shoot up, even if all those decks are extremely successful, just simply because a lot of Standard players that are serious about the format, they already have their copies. They've had them for a long time now. There are people scrambling if they want to build one of those particular decks and they didn't have copies of this. That's why you're seeing the price jump right now. But for the most part, there's not going to be a long-term desire to get this card because so many players already have them. This will probably touch the $30 mark and then begin to stabilize, but it will still see a lot of play going forward. Number 7, Sulphur Falls from Dominaria up $2.02 to $10.99. Big part of a lot of important mana bases right now. The Izzet Control build, Grixis Control as well in Standard, and also the Izzet Spells deck. I do think Izzet Spells is another deck you want to pay attention to going forward. Also, this sees plenty of modern play. Number 6, Vraska's Contempt up $2.26 to $19.24. Key piece of removal. This continues to be a really important part of the Standard meta, and you'll find this in a lot of places. Abzan midrange, Golgari midrange, Grixis, Dimir, Esper control decks, so they're all going to run this as well. Number 5, Resplendent Angel goes up $3.14 to $19.99. Of course, this is a key part of those Boros Angels decks, but you're also going to find this in various midrange decks as well. Number 4, Banefire, and I'll tell you right now, all variants of this card are going up this week. The card is extremely hot. Here's 3 of the biggest climbers though. Modern Masters 2015 up $1.79 to $3.50. Conflux up $3.23 to $5. Duels of the Planeswalkers up $4.01 to $6.99. Of course, this was reprinted in Magic 2019, making it Standard legal, and that one's going up a little bit, as well as the Speed versus Cunning Dual Deck variant. However, this card is just poised to have a big weekend, if not this weekend, next weekend. Like I mentioned with Carnage Tyrant, with more control decks doing well, there's just going to be more of a need for this card going forward. And even if it's out of the sideboard, I do think this is going to see a lot of play. Many decks will want this Mono Red Aggro, as well as Boros Aggro, Boros Midrange, Boros Angels. Even Izzet and Grixis Control might want to run this against mirror matchups. I do think you're going to see a lot of this card going forward. Number 3 is Jade Light Ranger at $4.38 to $14.14. This card is extremely hot. As a matter of fact, while I've been making the video, I've had to update the price like 2 or 3 times now. It just keeps going up as I'm talking about it. Now, this is due to the fact that Golgari Midrange, I think, is poised to have a really big week going forward. Players have tweaked it over the last couple weeks, and I do think that deck is getting better. So you will find this card there, as well as Abzan Midrange and also Golgari Menagerie. Number 2 is Vraska Relic Seeker, going up $6.10 this week to $21.50. A lot of players overlooked this card as we moved into the new meta, but it's a very solid card, and it's going to be fantastic, of course, in a lot of these mid-range decks, including Golgari, Abzan, and Sultai going forward. You'll find this many times in main decks, sometimes up to 1 to 3 copies, and also seeing sideboard play as well. Number 1, very similar story here. Vivian Reed going up $6.43 to $22. A lot of people didn't appreciate how good she was going to be in this particular meta. She sees play sometimes in mains, but sometimes out of the sideboards, but in a number of places now. Steel Leaf Stompy, you usually find her in the main deck there. Abzan Golgari midrange, sometimes a combination of 1 to 2 between the main deck and the sideboard. And then also you'll find her in Selesnya token sideboards. So she's kind of all over the place right now. Again, she will go up a little more before she stabilizes. Alright, so let's move on to Modern, with the top 5 Modern legal cards that have lost value this week. Now you're going to see a lot of Commander cards in these Modern lists. Modern is just really cold because we haven't had a lot of big tournaments recently, although that will change this weekend. There are going to be some big Modern tournaments. I do think we'll be talking more about Modern playable cards next week. Number 5, Snapcaster Mage from Modern Masters 2017, down 238 to 75.99. So this is just a normalization week because a lot of eyes are off this card right now as people are focused on Standard. But yes, this still sees play all over the place in Modern, Legacy Control builds, Legacy Miracles. Snaps isn't going anywhere. Number 4, Privileged Position goes down 306 this week to 23.72. This card initially got hot because a lot of Commander players were picking this up to upgrade the Commander 2018 Adaptive Enchantment deck. But since then, we found out it's going to be reprinted in the Selesnya Guild Kit, which comes out November 2nd. So this card has softened up a little bit. Good news for players that waited to pick it up. Number 3, Enchanted Evening goes down 315 to 26.32. Another great upgrade for that Adaptive Enchantment deck. However, this had a spike last week because a lot of people saw that Privileged Position was being reprinted and they thought, okay, I can get that one cheaper. So now I'll bite the bullet and pay a little more for Enchanted Evening. Because of that, the price jumped a little bit. Also, being a Shadowmoor rare, those tend to be a little jumpier because cards from that time period of Magic, of course, had a lower print run comparatively, but now we're seeing some retraction this week. Number 2, Chalice of the Void. This is the Masters 25 version, going down $3.69 this week to $45. Feels like all versions of this card are going down to some degree. This one is dropping the most, though, and of course, this did soften up when this reprint occurred not too long ago. But Chalice of the Void is still seeing plenty of play in Modern and Legacy, and even some in Vintage style. But in Modern, you'll find this in Is It Were of Invention decks, Legacy, Eldrazi Post, as well as 4-color Loam. This is a 3 or 4 of in the main of those builds. So it's seeing a lot of play in popular decks, but it is overall percentage-wise seeing a little bit less play than it did maybe a number of months ago prior to some of the changes in the formats with banned and restricted list updates. So because of that, this is a little bit soft, and I do think it will go down a little more before it stabilizes, maybe close to the $40 mark or so. Number 1 is Tarmogoyf. 2 versions here. Future Sight going down $3.69 to $95.11, with Modern Masters going down $4.32 to $75. Basically, Goyfs are losing value this week across the board, but these two were losing the most value. And the reason is mostly because of an overdue retraction. A number of weeks back, when we first saw Assassin's Trophy, a lot of cards jumped, including this one, as people were speculating, especially in Modern, Abzan and Jund decks could be getting better. Since then, a lot of those cards have retracted, but this one just hadn't retracted yet. It's finally happening. So that's what you're really seeing here, but this could be temporary if this weekend Tarmogoyf and one of those decks has a good weekend. Alright, let's move on to the top 5 Modern legal cards that have gained value this week. And again, you're going to see a lot of Commander influence here because everything is pretty cold in Modern. Number 5 is Heat Shimmer, going up $1.32 to $2.33. This is a pretty hot Commander pickup right now because of its interaction with Dualcaster Mage. It's also a Lorwyn rare, another one of those sets from that time period where print runs were a little bit lower. Number 4, Emrakul, the Eon's Torn. This is up $1.34 this week to $44.81, and this is the Rise of the Eldrazi version. This card would be on our list more often, I think, if it was Commander legal. Of course, it's not, but it's still a great card in a lot of decks in Modern as well as Legacy. Modern, Is It Were of Invention decks are running this currently. It's a pretty popular deck. Legacy, of course, Eldrazi Post, 4-color Loam. This card I do think is a little bit undervalued right now, considering it hasn't seen a reprint in a while. Now, maybe at some point we will get a reprint in a Master set next year or something like that. But if that doesn't happen, I would expect this one to continue to tick up. Number 3, Sakashima the Imposter, up $1.50 to $21.98. This card is seeing some increased attention among Commander players right now thanks to Etrata the Silencer. It works very well with that card. Number 2 is Bloom Tender, up $1.59 to $39.89. Just an overall amazing card for Commander, and it's an Eventide rare, so again, it gets a little jumpy. It had a lower print run. It was from that time period. but you'll find this in Commander decks all over the place. It really could use a reprint. Number 1, Greater Oromancy, up $3.30 this week to $44. This card's kind of been up and down a little bit as it's trying to find its price point. Notice it's another Shadowmoor rare, but this is also another great upgrade for the Adaptive Enchantment deck. Alright, let's move on to our Vintage Spotlight. A lot of unlimited cards again. That's been the story for a number of weeks now, as more and more stores as well as collectors are just more comfortable dealing in these cards because they can move faster and they're more affordable than the alpha and beta variants. Also, 93, 94 players can still use these cards, so there's a lot of attention on them right now. So let's see what's going on. We have Winter Orb from Unlimited, up $13.10 to $76.50. This is not on the reserve list, and it has been reprinted if you're looking for cheaper copies. Sedge Troll, now this one is on the reserve list. This is the unlimited version, up $28.50 to $108.46. This did get reprinted, however, and revised if you're looking for a cheaper copy. Armageddon from Unlimited, this one is not on the reserve list and has been reprinted a few times now. It's going up $37.79 this week to $89.99. Granite Gargoyle, this is on the reserve list, but much like Sedge Troll, it did get a reprint in the revised, of $47.14 to $67.49 this week. Badlands is next from Unlimited, and of course this is on the reserve list, being a dual land, but it was reprinted in revised, up $234.09 to $644.55 this week. I looked in this one to see why it was moving so much, and basically there's just extra near mint copies added to the marketplace this week compared to last week. Because there's not a lot of data points whenever that happens, it could result in a jump overall, and that's what you're seeing here this week. Now if those are sold or taken off the market, it will go back down next week. Finally, a card not from Unlimited, it's Bizarre Baghdad. This is going up $350.02 to $1,549.97 this week. So this is a reserve list card from Arabian Nights, and why is this one jumping? I pointed it out this week because I thought it was a pretty good lesson to not always trust data. Basically, if you dig into this card and see what's going on with it, there's an extremely high listing out there. However, that listing is actually for a playset, but the way that it's been inputted, it's showing up as a single. So because of that, it's creating this price jump overall when it comes to the value of these cards, but it's actually kind of a phantom price jump. Now, once that's resolved, whether they change the listing or someone buys it or they take it down, then the price point will go back down to where it was again. Now, this is still a great card, though. It sees tons of vintage play in decks like Dredge, Survival, and Lands. Bayou, as we go back to Unlimited for this last card of the section, and of course, this is on the reserve list, but was reprinted and revised at $419 this week to $1,249.99. Wow, so what's causing this jump? Well, somebody actually put up a very exaggerated listing this week. Now, they could be throwing a number out there and don't really know what to sell it for. That could be the case, or they might have other copies of the card that they're planning on selling this week and next, and they're putting up an exaggerated copy onto the marketplace because they're trying to push price points like this. So once the data gets skewed by that exaggerated copy, they might be able to sell their other copies for a little more than they normally could have. That might be what's happening here. All right, let's move on to our Commander Spotlight. Now, we saw a lot of cards already in the Modern section, so there's not quite as many this time in the Commander section, but let's see what we got. Rhaegar of Karakeep, up $1.02 to $49. Now, this is a reserve list Legends card, so these cards can jump regardless of what's going on from time to time. However, recently Mark Rosewater mentioned the Cabal tribe in a poll, and that got people speculating that maybe it's going to come back at some point, so some Commander players have been looking at cards like this. Oracle Moldiah, up $1.27 to $34.49. This is a fantastic Commander card. It's been pretty hot recently due to the fact that it's a great upgrade for the Nature's Vengeance Commander 2018 deck, too. Teferi's Protection goes up $1.33 to $30.99. This is from Commander 2017, another really good Commander card here. Now, we found out recently there's going to be a Judge promo printing of this card in foil, but unfortunately for those folks that are waiting for the price of this card to go down, Judge promos don't necessarily cause that to happen. There's just not enough of them out there for it to matter, basically. So typically, cards will stay relatively stable even in the wake of one of those promos. I think what we're seeing here, though, is an increase because the Judge promo not only brought more attention to the card, but also is an indication that it most likely won't be reprinted anywhere else for at least a little while. Phyrexian Dreadnoughts. This is from Mirage, up $1.45 to $48.49. This is on the reserve list, but there is a Judge promo foil of the card if that's something you prefer to grab. This one's been hot in Commander recently due to its interaction with Lazav the Multifarious from Guilds of Ravnica. Next is our Pauper Spotlight, and one card to look at, it's Oubliette, the Black Lotus of Pauper, on our list again, going up 72 cents to $39.55. We know, of course, that he's playing the mono black decks in the format. Will it cross the $40 threshold? I think it will at some point. I don't know if it's going to happen right now, though. I kind of feel like over the next couple weeks, this will trend back down slightly, then maybe start climbing again eventually later on. One of the things keeping this card from climbing is the fact that Mark Rosewater recently said that at some point he expects this card to be reprinted, which isn't surprising. It's just a matter of when it's going to happen at this point. So that does keep a lot of speculators off this card for the most part. With that being said, that's the Market Watch for this week. Monday, we're going to be back with a video recapping the results of the big tournaments. You'll definitely want to catch that to see what cards were successful and what made it into some top 8s. And then later in the week, we'll be looking at Guilds of Ravnica cards again. Of course, next Saturday, we'll be right back here to do another Market Watch. But until then, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.